This is post editing, Micah, and I just kind of wanted to come on here before you started listening to this episode. If you're anything like me and you have suffered from sleep paralysis, I do advise you to proceed with caution upon listening to this episode. When I hear people talk about sleep paralysis, I am more likely to experience sleep paralysis that night. So if this is something that you suffer with, like I said, please proceed with caution. Welcome back to All Things Creepy. I'm Micah James, and this week we are talking about something that I think is almost like beyond scary, or I really shouldn't even say beyond scary, but it's super creepy. It sends chills down my spine, especially since I've experienced this myself. I personally had like a sleep paralysis experience right before I decided what I was gonna do for this episode. So that's kind of what inspired me, and I will get to my experiences, especially that one, in near closer to the end of the episode. But I also decided on this topic because last episode I talked about a personal experience that I had at a local place, Mark Twain's house in Connecticut. And I wanted to talk about something that more people could relate to because I feel like a lot of people comparatively have experienced shadow people than have had experiences in haunted houses. Now, I could be wrong. I didn't look up the statistics for that, but I just feel like this is I just I guess my point is I've met more people personally who've had experience with shadow people more than I've met people who have had an experience in some sort of haunted building. The long and short of it, like the very, very basic, super short Spark Notes version of it, is that they are these human looking beings who are just very shadowy. Wikipedia describes them as the perception of a patch of shadow as a living humanoid figure and interpreted as the presence of a spirit or other entity by believers in the paranormal or supernatural. There are explanations for this that are a little more, I say, realistic than paranormal or supernatural, but we'll get to that in a minute. Um, but they are generally masculine in appearance. There have been a few reports of a more feminine presence, but a lot of people relate that to the old hag. A lot of people think that shadow people have to do with sleep paralysis, and sleep paralysis is also known as old hag syndrome. I'll get to that again after we define what shadow people are. What makes shadow people different from just your own shadow is that they tend to have depth. If you see your own shadow, it looks very much 2D. There isn't really anything special about your shadow, really, in terms of depth. Um, but shadow people seem to be 3D. Like if we saw another human, it's sort of like that. More often than not, they are reported to have no eyes or facial features, and if they do, they're not super well defined. Like in my own experience, like I can tell like where the eyes are supposed to be and where the mouth is supposed to be, but it's not like a clear like, oh, there its eyes, there is its mouth sort of thing. There are various types of shadow people. I did research like three very common ones. There could be more, and I'm sure, and I have come across more in my research. But again, these were just the three most common that kept coming up. The most common being, of course, are human shaped shadows. As you can imagine, these are human or humanoid in shape, and they tend to be seen with a hat, cloak, or some sort of combination of each. TikTok has been talking a lot about the Hat Man, and he falls under this this category of shadow people. A lot of pictures that I've seen of the Hat Man have just kind of almost been funny rather than scary. Like one, I'll have a picture posted on my Instagram of the one that I've seen that I'm talking about, but one that I've seen that's just like so funny to me is like he's like seen with like normal eyes, I guess, and like this mouth, and it almost looks like it's like one tooth on top and one tooth at the bottom almost, and it's kind of funny. But a lot of people who have experienced the Hat Man, it's more so just like really creepy. And he tends to sometimes fall under the demonic type of shadow being. Now, demonic shadows are usually seen with red eyes and described to be very tall, having wings and horns and or elongated fingers or just limbs in general. A lot of people who experience the Hat Man will see him with red eyes. Many think that he's like almost like a harbinger of bad news. And I can do a whole episode on Hat Man, which I plan on doing. I have a long list of episodes I want to do. So don't worry, I will get to him eventually. Um, the third most common that I did find is a black mass or mist. These are a little less humanoid, but do have the impression of a human. They tend to be more fuzzy or blurry. They are reported to change in shape and move fast and are associated with more negative energy. Although they don't seem to be as malevolent as the demonic entities, they just feel a little more not so welcoming, I'll say. There are a lot of logical explanations as to why you might experience uh, shadow people. I want to preface this by saying that I call myself an optimistic skeptic. I personally don't believe in certain explanations unless I personally have proof or if you can provide me proof. However, if you feel like you've experienced something, I believe you've genuinely experienced it. So that's why I'm kind of like an optimistic skeptic. So we're going to start with the ones that are more rooted in the paranormal, supernatural, etc. And then go into the ones that are more rooted in reality, I guess you could say. And when I say reality, I'm defining that as things that are considered quote unquote natural rather than supernatural, normal rather than paranormal. So, a lot of people think that it could be ghosts, demons, or other spiritual entities. Again, it kind of goes back to the demonic shadows or the black mass slash mist entities, and like I said, the normal explanations. But it's a little harder for me to. We'll start with this. It's a little harder for me to believe that it's a ghost or demon because no one has necessarily provided proof that can't necessarily no one's really provided proof that doesn't come with some sort of, you know, logical explanation. The second explanation that's rooted in supernatural and paranormal are astral bodies. In case you don't know what an astral body is, it's almost like someone who's having like some sort of out of body experience. So you're seeing, someone else. They could be from a they could be in a different room or all the way across the other side of the world. Um, these astral bodies are believed to be the shadows are essences of the people having these experiences. Third explanation, time travelers. So basically, these are people who travel from the future to observe our timeline. So that's why you feel like someone's watching you, or you feel like the shadow person is watching you. They just want to see like how we lived, or they're just observing us, period. It will appear as shadows to us. I couldn't necessarily find out why they appear as such to us. It's kind of just one of those things where it's like it might be because like they haven't figured out how to fully appear as themselves. Number 4 uh is interdimensional beings or aliens. Now I can almost buy into this uh only because it kind of ties into like how vast the universe is, and a lot of people who have experienced sleep paralysis have also experienced seeing the tall grays, and which are an alien life form. And so, with how many people have experienced like these alien abductions, I can with how many people have just been like reporting it, it's like hard for me to like believe that like every single one of them is lying. So I can almost buy into this theory as to like why shadow people appear. Now we're gonna dive into like the more normal slash natural explanations. Again, for lack of a better term, those were the supernatural slash paranormal, and now again the normal slash natural explanations. The most common tends to be sleep paralysis. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about sleep paralysis demons, and they tend to like be described as shadowy figures, which kind of ties into the theory of a figment of the imagination. People have reported seeing shadow people outside of sleep paralysis, like out on a bright sunny day. And, like throughout the day, you probably see, like, catch a bunch of shit out of the corner of your eye, and you think it's one thing, but then another person saw that same thing, but full on, and you will find that like what that person saw, like, you know, let's say it's a dog speeding past, but because it's out of the corner of your eye, you might think it's this like fast like wave of air, but the person who saw the dog run by will tell you that it's a dog. So, it's kind of that sort of thing. Uh Plus, like with sleep paralysis, your brain is kind of like still in REM sleep while you might be conscious, and only your eyes can move. You can't move your head, so it stands to reason that you're seeing just something out of the corner of your eye, and also you could just be dreaming too. And finally, another explanation, the final explanation that I found was sleep deprivation. This makes sense. The less you sleep, the more likely you are to hallucinate. This is just kind of like something that a lot of like sleep researchers have found, or even just doctors have found. You're more likely to just hallucinate, whether it's visual, auditory, whatever. You're just more likely to hallucinate. They have also found that this is especially true from meth addicts. From my understanding, from my research, and I just want to make that perfectly clear, this is my understanding. Meth tends to like keep you up. So, to think that they're seeing these shadowy beings, it kind of makes sense because they're so sleep deprived, because this drug is making them stay up for days on end. Let's talk about my own personal experiences with them. So, The first time that I've ever experienced a shadow person, it was terrifying because I didn't know what was going on. I've kind of always struggled with sleep. I don't want to say I have insomnia because I haven't been like officially diagnosed with it. Um, but like when I wake up, I tend to have a hard time falling back asleep, and like I just like remember sleep, like kind of like waking up and having that paralysis moment, and like I see something standing in the corner of my room. I can't really make it out, and it doesn't seem like a and like nothing else was there in that corner of my room, I remember. So I can't tell you that it was just nothing. I can't tell you that like, oh, it was just, my coat rack or anything like that. There was nothing in that corner of the room. So it was just like in that sense it was very terrifying. Another memorable moment. Um I used to live near a cemetery, and so you could say like, oh, that was just, there are times like I could have possibly just been getting in my own head, right? So with that in mind, could I could have just put two and two together and like having this experience, and the way my bed uh was kind of laid out in this house, it was just high enough where like it while highly unlikely something could be under my bed, and I see like this hand come out from under my bed, and that was terrifying. In that same house, like on the opposite side of the opposite wall, there was a crawl space. I saw it crawl out of the crawl space. That was also terrifying. Um, and then my most recent one, probably the most terrifying one to date. Um, so I like that day. It was a very stressful day at work. So like I already was having trouble sleeping, and I wake up, I have sleep paralysis. At this point, I've experienced sleep paralysis enough where I'm just like, okay, like, I know how to wake myself up. But the terrifying part was I saw my closet open. Now I can't remember much, and I can't tell you if I actually saw a shadow person. Like I can't I I can't remember, but, like, I wouldn't be surprised, and, like, that just I remember waking up crying because it was just, like, I never experienced anything like that. It was just so terrifying. But, yeah, I mean, if you guys have any experiences that you wanna share with me, please let me know. I would love to hear them because, like, I feel like hearing more people, it's just, like, not only brings comfort to me, but to, like, other people who have had experience with shadow people. And I also just kinda wanna know, like, what do you know for, about shadow people? What is your experience? Again, going back to what is your experience with it? So, yeah, if you can reach out to me. And also, what do you think? Why do we see shadow people? What do you believe they are? You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube. All of that will be linked in my show notes. I will see you guys next time uh, with something that I do want to surprise you guys with. So I'll see you guys next time, and please be safe out there.